Welcome to the Center of Light Radio with spiritual teacher, intuitive, musician, composer, and best-selling author of The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, your host, Keith Anthony Blanchard.
Keith Anthony Blanchard here. Power up and spread the light. Spread the light. Center of Light Radio. Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. Strap in all ye spiritual astronauts as we launch for inner space. I'm looking forward to this show today. My guest Hillary Raimo and myself, we're going to be playing some spiritual tennis, back and forth. That's some really cool subjects, and I'm excited yet again to have Hillary on the Center of Light Radio. We were discussing in the radio green room how magnificent she is at the work that she discovers, she plays with, she uncovers. She's an explorer, a truth explorer, and I really dig that about her. Center of Light Radio. Go to centeroflightradio.com for all your Keith Anthony Blanchard needs surrounding Center of Light Radio. I just got all the archives in order. Wow, I'm impressed with myself. It looks really cool. Make sure if you missed any past shows that you heard about, that's the place to go. Centeroflightradio.com. Hit the archives tab. Also, we're going to move the interview with Swamiji Viswayogi, God realized man from India. Wow. Talk about an amazing amount of power this man packs. Subtly. But the spiritual endowment of this man is amazing. God realized man, Swamiji Viswayogi. We're going to move his interview back one more week to the 24th due to some things that come up. As you can tell, he's a very busy man. He works with diplomats, officials, all kinds of people from all over the world. So he tends to get a little busy. But I will tell you this, when I was in his space, fortunately, the whole time we were having a puja session, he had a cell phone, and while people are revering him, he would just take calls like it was nothing. I really love that about him. So we're going to move Swamiji's interview back to the 24th. So that means we still have time for you to email me your questions for Swamiji. Keep your emails on a more expanded, broader situation. We don't want to talk about your personal life, and that's all cool. Your personal life is important, but we want to ask Swamiji the questions that matter for the collective. What can we do? How can we engage or back out or disengage from certain things so we can help this world exponentiate into the heaven on earth prophecy that we know about? Let's see. Also, make sure you go to Keith Anthony Blanchard. There you can jump seat from Center of Light Radio to find all my creations, all my books, my movies, everything that I'm about. Make sure you do that. We're not going to waste any time today, so to speak. Not that my stuff is wasting time. Basically, I'm just scatting looking for my notes. Let's see. Make sure that if you call into the show, today would be the day to do it. My powerful guest. Call in the show, 888-919-2355, 888-919-2355. Remember, if you're not at home by your computer and you want to hear your favorite show, yes, Center of Light, and the many others here on Inception Radio Network, you can go to the App Store on your phone and download the Inception Radio Network app for free. Everything is right there at your fingertips. Chat room, listen, live links, podcasts, news, much more. There are many ways to connect to Center of Light Radio and Inception Radio Network for sure. And this is the part I love every time I do a show. Now it's time to get down to Center of Light Radio business. On the Center of Light Radio show today, my guest is Hillary Raimo, and we will be discussing Jade Helm, conscious quantum computers, Facebook goal of telepathy. Ooh, that's new for me. How we are studied through our interactions on social media, and how we are headed for a world of higher AI, artificial intelligence. How we can deal with this through our abilities of quantum consciousness. What an info-packed show this is going to be. I want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat room who is here religiously. I love and appreciate you. for your support and my work with Center of Light Radio. Thank you greatly. Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Hillary, founder of, and I'm going to get this right for you, Hillary, Breathe for Earth, is a well-known psychic medium, ordained non-denominational minister, master Reiki healer, Usui and Karuna, a shamanic practitioner, and earth oracle. Hillary Raimo is an expert on multi-dimensional healing. She specializes in communicating about how the mind-body healing process frees consciousness on a personal to global level in order to help enable body energy and collective consciousness to transcend time and space. Her international client-based consulting ranges from high-level corporate complex executives to filmmakers, best-selling authors, celebrities, and to thousands of world citizens. You can find my guests and more about my guests and her work at a website, which is hillaryraimo.com. Welcome to the Center of Light.
Hi, Keith. Thanks for having me back. It's always a great time when I come visit you for an hour.
Yes, and I get the same charge out of it as well. You just got back from France. Can you just give me a little bit about that before we get into our subjects today?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's been quite an interesting journey this past year. I know the last time I was on, I shared in depth what Love Breathe for Earth is and how it was founded and how it's been moving in this wonderful direction for the last 12, 13 months. France came to me as an opportunity to go on a personal artist retreat. I started painting last year, and I started to move out into the world as an artist last year, and the opportunity came up for me, and it was an artist residency. I applied for it, got accepted, went over there for about 3 weeks, and just immersed myself into this tiny rural village of Montcabrière in the southwestern part of the country. Very, very remote, beautiful landscapes, just saturated in nature, had a beautiful studio to work with, wonderful host. And it was quite an experience. It was the first time I've ever actually taken that long of a period of time for myself without teaching or doing an event or, taking a group someplace. This was the first time I had actually done this for myself completely for the whole time. And so it was there's so many layers to what happened in France. I would have to do the whole show. I'm sorry. That's just not the topic I came here to talk about today. But I will tell you that it was my first time going to the country. I have never been before. I have always been called. I knew that it would have to be the right time. It was the right time. And there was a tremendous amount of magic that happened. And I'm still floating in it. I'm still integrating it. And as I complete the 3 pieces of artwork that I made while I was there, it just brings back these wonderful moments. And we were just talking about this before on the air. I was talking to your producer about making these happy moments, doing these things in life that we want to do so that when we can't do them anymore in our old age, we can have these memories and experiences to look back on. And hopefully we're in a health that can recall.
I love that you said that, because when I got back from India, I was there for 2 weeks experiencing the divinity of Satya Sai Baba. When I got back, even a month later, it was fresh. I'm still processing what happened in the year 2000 to this day. And when I reflect back, certain thoughts, certain fragrances, certain little things will happen, and it really launches me back to the year 2000, being on the ashram, having a full-blown experience all over again. Let's get right down to business, Hillary. First on the list, you wanted to talk about Jade Helm. We all have ideas about what we see through social media, what we see through the media about Jade Helm. Tell me what you have uncovered and what this may be all about from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, I'd like to tell everybody listening, if you're not familiar with my work, I have a tremendous past of healing work, and I've done a lot of healing work in the world as a healer and also my own healing processes. I have a traditional background in psychology, and I have a knack for this kind of intuitive research. And when I pick up a topic, what I do is it just kind of takes over me, and I find myself immersed in it. I find myself intuitively investigating it, finding links, pathways here and there and everywhere. And, what's captured me since France, talking about France, when I was there, I was visiting with my friend Robert Bouval, who is an author who came from Spain. And he's known for being the founder of the Orion correlation theory. He discovered that the Giza pyramids in Egypt, in Cairo, correlate with the Orion constellation, and he's very well known for that. He's written many, many, many books. So he came to say hello, and we were talking one afternoon, and he started to talk about the deep web. And I have to say that the deep web is what really sparked my curiosity button. And I was just completely fascinated with this. And I said, the deep web, what's the deep web? Well, it turns out that, everybody who's listening to this show on your computers or your digital device, your devices, and you're going about your usual day, checking email and all this, you're only operating on 4% of the total capacity. And 96% of the rest of the internet is what's called the deep web. And when people search out the deep web, one of the first things that they're going to find is a very dark world. There's a lot of very heavy activity there, a lot of pornography, a lot of illegal activity. So when people think of the deep web, they think, oh, that must be where all the illegal stuff is. And that's where you buy guns and you have all these other things, and I don't ever want to go there. Well, it's designed that way. And the deep web consists of layers. And once you go underneath all of that and you kind of dig a little bit more, you find other areas where all governments hold most of their sensitive information, their military information. Once you go into a certain depth of that, you end up getting, you're either going to meet master hackers who will take everything off your computer and leave you spinning, or you're going to have the FBI knocking on your door, literally. So we're talking about
that was a question I was about to have. Once you expose yourself.
Yeah, we're talking about a very, very sophisticated system. The World Wide Web was discovered and implemented and began at CERN. If you didn't know that, CERN is where we have the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, and they're doing a lot of interesting experiments over there. And I've been watching that as well. And while I was in France, they were conducting their experiments. And so I was that much closer to Switzerland, obviously, than I was in the United States. So it was very symbolic, if not anything. And so as I was pondering the deep web and learning about it and getting more understanding about exactly what it was and watching CERN, I started to have these revelations, these kind of personal revelations as I was sitting here looking through all of this material and really finding the actual material. I refuse to deal with conspiracy theories because conspiracy theories, having been a talk show host for 10 years on Achieve Radio, as you know, and I just ended that 10-year run in January of this year. I have talked and circled many, many topics, including conspiracy theories, UFOs, alternative healing, just myriad of different topics. And so the conspiracy theory world, I'm very versed in. I understand it. I get it. I believe a lot of it is really good stuff. However, it gets very convoluted with disinformation, people who just regurgitate information without researching sources. It just can drive people crazy and really just leave them kind of hanging without some kind of hope or higher message. And I believe in my work, and I've done a good job of this. I believe I have, because I have set the intention right from the beginning. If I'm going to speak on some topic that may be considered a conspiracy theory, I want people to be very clear that I am not just regurgitating information. I am talking about my own ponderings, my own synchronistic findings. I am talking about, information, links, connections, etc., dots that I have found in my own research that I do online. Occasionally, people will send me something that I haven't seen, and where do we go from there? It really just depends on what intuitively pops up off the screen for me. Well, as I was looking through some of this deep web content, and by content, I mean research on the surface net. And I had come across a friend or a person, an acquaintance who was very well versed in it. And he was helping me get into some of the deeper aspects of it and teaching me some of the things. For example, the Bitcoin economy that is, well alive underneath in the deep web. And what's happening is we have these illegal type markets. For example, the Silk Road is a recent one that some people may have seen in the headlines, because the person who is taking the fall for that entire market, Ross Ulbricht, is facing federal charges and life in prison without the possibility of parole. But what's happened is, and he had an interesting concept. The concept was completely illegal in the sense that he was selling completely illegal things. But what he was doing was he was getting rid of the middleman, and he was basically taking the vendors and putting them connecting them straight to the clients. And he had a hope of decreasing drug violence, taking the market out of the mafia's hands and the government's hand. Well, you can imagine that didn't go over very well on the surface.
Not at all.
And so he was dealing with billions of dollars worth of Bitcoins, and he had a very elaborate system set up, and it was working. And during the time that it was operating, drug violence actually did decrease, and he was able to prove that. So the authorities went in, found his server. The way that they found his server is a mystery. They will not talk about that in court. And so basically what he's saying, this gentleman who's facing these charges, is that the United States, the government, was able to get into his server, find his server through the very hacking modalities that are illegal. So they were using illegal techniques to catch him, find him, and prosecute him, but then they also stole all the Bitcoin from his wallet. And we're talking billions of dollars. We're talking millions and billions of dollars. We're talking huge markets and money. People don't even know what's happening because they have no concept of what digital currency really is. So digital currency popped up onto my radar, and I was watching this, and I was learning, and I was trying to understand, because I had never heard of it either. And if I had heard of something similar, you don't really give it too much attention, because you think, oh, that's something somewhere in Tech Valley, some brilliant kid thought up of, and where is it ever really going to go? Well, the reality is they're perfecting these markets. They're working within these markets. They're perfecting the trade value. I mean, it trades underneath the deep web, just like it's a very complicated system, but yet it's brilliantly designed because of how they've been able to do it so off screen, no regulation, it's a completely different banking system. So what I think is happening intuitively when I look through this research, what I think is happening is they are designing a complete digital currency economy, test running it in the deep web, running it through these illegal markets, because let's face it, the illegal markets, even above ground on the surface, is where most crime syndicates make their money. And that is so tangled into politics and governments and the elite and all of that, that honestly, I think they're almost making sure that those markets are all set up before they introduce it to the surface. But that's an opinion. And so I really was captured by this, and I thought, more people really need to understand what's going on. And I started to talk about it on social media. I talked about it on some interviews, and I was, making a point for people to understand. Well, and the links and the things that I was giving people were coming from good sources. So they were able to go in and do their own research, which is really what I do, is I just present an amount of information and people can go with it, take it where they want to go with it. read, learn, pass it on. I don't care. It's available everywhere. Just because I brought it to your attention doesn't mean I own it. But I have had my own interactions with the information. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we're dealing with a paradigm now where we're dealing with information. Information has the power to illuminate people's minds, or it has the power to destroy lives. I mean, we're talking about a kind of an etheric thing. So people really have to get an understanding that we have become a completely different culture than what has ever existed before. And the way that we organize and index and structure information and share information, it's got a very, very powerful leverage in some circumstances. And as I was wandering through all of this, I came across an article that was published in Live Science, and it was written by Jesse M. Spark. And Jesse had interviewed Mark Zuckerberg. And this was just recently on July 3rd of this year. And the interview went on to say about how Mark's vision ultimately for Facebook is to have Facebook telepathy, to have a kind of computerized technology so well advanced that we can literally, and I'm going to quote him here, he says, one day I believe we'll be able to send full, rich thoughts to each other directly using technology. You'll just be able to think of something, and your friends, plural, will immediately be able to experience it too, if you'd like. This would be the ultimate communication technology. And he continues to say, we used to just share in text, and now we post mainly with photos. In the future, video will be even more important than photos. After that, immersive experiences like virtual reality will become the norm. And after that, we'll have the power to share our full sensory and emotional experience with people whenever we'd like. So we're talking about a visionary who has had the capability to corral millions of people together to have a daily virtual social experience with their friends on Facebook. Everything that you post on Facebook indexes you. Most people use Facebook as a way to express themselves. And, I use it as a way to kind of get out my work and by my work, I mean my connections and the things that come across my plate every day that I share with people and organizing that and so on and so forth. Most people do not use Facebook for that. Most people use Facebook to talk about, what Kitty just did on the table, or, over there, or I'm feeling like this today. You are creating a database for super quantum computers to study human emotion and interaction. And it was discovered within the last few years that Facebook was, in fact, tainting news feeds. And the news feeds, they were experimenting with people's reactions and how they would feel. If they're exposed to mostly depressing material, how would their status updates change accordingly? If they were exposed to happy-go-lucky material, how would that change their status updates and the material that they chose to share?
Didn't that experiment or that test happen, well, at least one of them, when they came out with the gay marriage thing and everybody's putting their new profile pic with this rainbow filter?
No, this was earlier. What I'm talking about specifically was about a year and a half ago, I believe. I don't have that right in front of me, so don't quote me on that, but it was a while ago. The rainbow thing, this is a perfect example. When gay marriage came out on the collective platform through mainstream media, we had an immersion into the rainbow frequency, the rainbow colors. A lot of people noticed this. I wasn't the only person to see this. And, the rainbow, the full spectrum, everything that it represents, it's come to be known as that, but it's not. I mean, a lot of people don't just see it as being representative of gay and lesbian marriage, etc. However, what it was doing was it was invoking that spectrum for people as they jumped on that rainbow wave and flew off with it. And of course it was being studied. I mean, everything we do is studied. We have an example that just, a perfect example of what that is. We just had this horrific lion killed in Africa at Cecil, and everyone's going crazy about it. And it's getting all kinds of publicity. And one of the things that I believe Jade Helm is, and this has been confirmed by some of my private sources, is that it's really a technology kind of showcase where they are illuminating certain technology, supercomputers, quantum technology, this technology that Mark Zuckerberg talks about in his interview on July 3rd. Those kinds of different implemented technologies are being experimented with, run. I mean, they're basically doing a test run. But it's also a showcase because the companies that have developed these technologies are showcasing them in this test run. So, and the military buyers are watching like anybody else would watch. It's kind of a situation where we have all of these things put into place, all of these scenarios, all of these things. I've been watching the headlines very carefully, very closely since Jade Helm started, because what's out there in the mainstream is a conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory, they're going to take over Texas, they're going to take our guns away. It's a distraction. That's not what they're doing. And they're perfectly fine with mainstream public people knowing that. They're perfectly fine with the conspiracy alternative medias running off with that. They're perfectly fine with all that. Let them eat cake. It's kind of like that. Let them eat cake. Here's what we really have. We have very, very high tech, super technology at work, military grade. They've militarized it. They're showing, they're seeing what it can do. They're putting it into action. And these companies that have designed this technology are basically waiting on the edge for military governments to buy it. This is like a showcase. It's like a rock and gem show. You have people who are standing on the side.
Rock and gem.
I'm not kidding.
No, I believe you.
I'm not kidding.
I love the way you put it, though. It was a clear picture.
Yeah. So so this is what's happening. So how are they going to ignite a digital showcase? Well, they're going to ignite stories, and they're going to illuminate stories. They're going to tie in social media. They're going to use the mainstream media. They're going to arouse people's consciousness through emotional triggers. They have studied us on Facebook for a very long time now, and we have how many people on there? Lots. So you get a really, really, wide range of data. The data is collected, the data is analyzed, and then the data is used to create a mimic within the supercomputers. At least that's what I've been able to find. And we also have these other kinds of things that most people really don't know exist. I'll give you an example here. We have MIT just constructed a synthetic biological cell computer. I'm trying to bring up my file here to share this with you. Of course, now my computer's not working right.
It's the deep web.
It's the deep web. I've been playing too much. Okay, so extremetech.com came out with an article recently. Bear with me here. And I found this very interesting because it showed how they turned a cell into a supercomputer. And what this means is if they can turn a cell into a supercomputer, element of a supercomputer, meaning it's a basic computer, but it can still collect data and broadcast it. Everything is kind of just, I have the rainbow circle going around, and I'll be able to read you some of the facts that I was prepared for the show in just a minute. But MIT came out with this cell computer. We have scientists moving into the body in ways that we have never seen before. We have access into people's neural networks through what's called neural dust. This neural dust was constructed by Berkeley in California. They had scientists working there where they've actually created dust that can be dipped into certain parts of the brain and stays there permanently. And what it does is it actually goes ahead and collects the data that your brain gives off in its chemical signals, anything the brain does, these cellular computers can track and record and transport outside of your body into a supercomputer that it's connected to. So this way they can literally just monitor. And this sounds like a sci-fi horror movie, right? Because how do we know we have them? How do we, is this just something that people are experimenting on? Well, maybe it's just certain subjects people are being experimented on. But there's also more of a sinister thing here, because this kind of very, very, very small world can be delivered in ways that you would not imagine. We can have them delivered through vaccines.
My next question. Yeah.
We can have them delivered through basic someone brushing by you and brushing your skin. It can get absorbed in through the skin.
Out of an airplane?
Yeah, and chemtrails. Speaking of chemtrails.
Chemtrails, that's right.
That was one of the things that I had come across in my research, was that the chemtrails are definitely spraying stuff. We know that. We've moved into that well enough to know by now that this is part of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a man-made kind of system where they're manipulating the weather, they're manipulating nature. They have invaded nature to the point where they believe they're going to control it. But what they're doing is they're harming it. They're
pissing her off is what they're doing.
Well, I don't see it as a piss off thing. And here's why. The Earth has been around a whole lot longer than we have. And her systems of rebalancing are pretty good. So all she really has to do is just kind of, the weather gets triggered, the storms get more extreme, the water issue we have on this planet is dire. Okay, we are in a dire state with the water system. The water is not clean. It is not what it should be. Okay, so I wanted to share this with you. Let me see if I can get this back.
I'll tell you what, Hilly, if you would, let's hold right there. We're at the bottom of the hour. I want to take this opportunity for you to please give out your contact information for our listening audience who may be more interested about you and your phenomenal work that you do. Would you give out your contact info?
Sure. I do phone sessions with people. I do consultations on the phone. They are a combination of intuitive, I don't want to say psychic, but they are intuitive, psychic, counseling, consulting type thing. You bring a situation to me, I go into it the same way I go into some of this research, clairvoyantly looking, and we come up with some solutions. So if you're looking to get a better grasp on something specific, I do phone sessions. You can go to my website, hillaryraimo.com. I believe the link is on your homepage. And that's the best way to get a hold of me. You can find me on social media. Sometimes I interact a lot, sometimes I don't. The best ways to really reach me is through my website. And I am starting a new radio show with James Swigger, thank you, on Capricorn Radio. And we will be doing our first show at the end of this month, and we'll be doing about 4 shows together. And what that show is about is kind of what we're talking about tonight. Things that we go into and research, and I'll be doing it and James will be doing it together, and the two of us will come together and offer a male-female perspective on the information. So we're excited.
Hang on. Did you come up with a name for your show yet? I know you
not yet, but we're asking people to kind of give us some suggestions. So if you have an idea for a name, come on over to Facebook, find me on Facebook, and let me know what you think.
888-919-2355, 888-919-2355 is the number you call into Center of Light Radio to come on the air and speak with myself and my phenomenal guest, Miss Hillary Raimo. We're talking about a lot of really, really cool stuff that I'm being really quiet about, because these are fields that I have yet to dabble in. That's why I'm always fascinated when I get Hillary in this show, because I call her a powerhouse of information. And for me, I mean that sincerely. And it's always humbling and very educational for me to be able to sit back and really just absorb and take in what she is uncovering through her work. So thank you, Hillary. You were just a bit ago, you were looking for something in a folder, I believe.
Hi, I don't know.
Yay.
My face is completely hi. I have to do it the old-fashioned way. Sorry about that.
Hey, things happen. I think it's the deep web. Please continue where you left off.
Oh, it's so amazing how that happens, isn't it? You know, you start talking about things, and all of a sudden your computer just crashes.
We were having so much fun. We were having lots of fun while you were gone. You was going to pick up the phone. I was going to order a pizza. And
are we back on the air? Or are we?
We are on the air.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
It's all good, baby.
Okay, so where was I? So here we have this information, this stuff coming up. You know, we have all of these things happening. We have Jade, Helm, we have Cecil, we have all of these really incredibly, highly emotionally charged scenarios. The emotion is then studied by the current digital, you know, the supercomputers and the technology being tested, and other, you know, by Jade, Helm and other various outlets, including, I believe, CERN, which is the center of the web. So we always have to kind of remember that CERN is firing up, and we have these experiments that are coming through. And, you know, we hear about the pentaquark, we hear about the smashing of particles, but we don't really hear about some of the other things. I mean, I just have a really hard time believing that this kind of facility, with the amount of money behind it and the amount of countries behind it, are really just pouring this kind of money and attention into something that simply smashes particles together to study, you know, the makeup of something. I think they're power sources. I think that they are creating these big, large colliders to provide a power source to something. Now, whatever that something is still debatable, and I'm still working on, you know, finding my way into some of that information. It could be, you know, they have gone on their website and they have publicly made it clear that they are looking for other dimensions. They are looking to access and open other dimensions. So is it a power source? You know, do we need to be at a certain level in order to open something, to you know, break the fabric of time-space, you know, move those threads apart a little bit so we can see on over to the other side? And the 1 week that they shut down for cleaning recently at the end of June, they had an announcement come out that they were going to begin a project that would create an even larger collider. That, you know, so, and China has just started construction on what they call the largest collider in the world. And when they started to dig into their tunnels to create, you know, to create the space to put this project, you know, to get this going, we had the Nepal earthquake. So we're talking about some really interesting things that most people are used to looking at compartmentalized. Well, we had an earthquake in Nepal. What does that have to do with anything? Well, did you know that the Chinese had just started, you know, construction of their largest super collider? And, you know, you have to go into the earth, you have to create the tunnels, you have to do the explosions, and then you moved Mount Everest a couple of degrees and killed how many people? But people won't put those two events together because, one, most people don't have access to the information because they're not looking. They don't know. They're busy with their 9-to-5 jobs. They go off and take care of their kids and pay their bills, and that's what they stay stuck in. And it is a very well-designed system to keep people ignorant of the truths of this world. And that's where it gets scary, because when people are ignorant of the truth, they are focused most of the time on things that have nothing to do with what's really going on. Mainstream media, I think we all know at this point, is completely fabricated on some levels. I mean, other countries can literally pay.
Hillary, if you could pause right there. I think whatever happened in the disconnection is compromising your audio. We can hear you, but your information is so important. I'm going to ask MJ. MJ, should we try to reconnect with her again on a hang-up redial situation, or do you think it's good as it is, sir? If you could send me that message. Until then, Hillary, please continue.
Yeah, I don't know if I can access my Skype because my computer is just completely on the blitz.
Okay. So
but anyway,
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we have this happening. I mean, if people really understood, they're telling us in the movies, the predictive programming, you can always watch the mainstream movies that come out and get a feel for the flavor we're being fed.
Yeah.
And what's coming out now is like Lucy, different kind of movies that have us wondering and pondering the supercomputer consciousness that, uploading our minds and consciousness to a computer, having our minds merge with a computer.
Yeah, that's definitely not that far away. That's definitely
And so if you watch, that's what's starting to become a big theme nowadays. Is these kind of supercomputer movies are coming out, which really is all about enhancing the consciousness and enhancing the human abilities. But what I get concerned with is that this technology is being militarized. It's not something that is just being, invented so we could be smarter, happier, more innovative people. Although I think that would happen. But I think what's also happening is they're using it to create that all-seeing eye state of government control. They are slowly invading and infiltrating our spaces with all kinds of technology, questionable ethics, questionable integrity with some of that. And, the younger generations coming up underneath us are absolutely, completely absorbed into the digital world. Their life is digital. And what they're creating with social media is digital fingerprints. You have a digital fingerprint now. You have a digital profile. They were even talking about digital DNA, being able to identify someone solely based on their internet access. Why is it that Facebook has 747 flying to enable Wi-Fi access to remote parts of the world? What is it about the agenda that wants every single human being on this planet linked up to a computer? That's what's happening. We're being linked up. How many people remember the days before cell phones? Remember we had beepers? Remember we had nothing? We had a phone attached to a wall with a cord. And if you didn't get the call, you missed the call and you had to call back. Nowadays, it's like instant contact, texting, Snapchat. You have all these kinds of things that are growing in our children that are coming up into the world as normal. They're growing into digital conscious beings. And when they become our age and they ripen into their adulthood, they are going to already have provided a mass amount of information to these supercomputers. And these supercomputers will always get smarter. They will always get smarter. And if they become conscious and if they become quantum, then we're talking about access into levels of being that most people go and study, with a shaman for years, or most people go off on a spiritual path for years to kind of elevate their consciousness to get to that level. Well, we're talking about a computer that can access that level of understanding. And I like to think that a computer that has that level of understanding will see the unsustainability of a militarized computer system in that sense. So perhaps the computer itself will even evolve beyond a militarized type consciousness because it'll realize that it's not sustainable to life. It's not sustainable to the planet. And I think that's where we have to remember that this is where we have to pay attention, because if you're going to put a signal out and a computer's going to study you, and you're going to be studied whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you are aware. If you are aware, why not be lucid, like in a lucid dream, and put out a signal and start, spreading out emotions that are of higher quality, a higher quality consciousness, a higher quality emotional life. Give that information to these supercomputers that are studying you regardless. Give it to them so that they understand that it's not always about hating each other, that humans get along. It's almost like God has shown up on the planet, and you need to show God that not everybody hates each other, and not everybody wants war, and not everybody is willing to get swept up in the mass emotional triggers that are being implanted through these kinds of implementations of technology. And for sure, people can be broken up. I mean, I'm on here talking to you, and I had all of my research out, and I can't access any of it right now. I mean, what are the odds of that? I can't even get on my computer. You had to call me on my cell phone, which might blow up. Who knows? I'm sitting here talking to you about all this, And the problem is we have people on the other side of this who are very versed in the technology, who understand it. There's really nothing that you can do that isn't accessible through these kind of technologies. Remember that we only use a certain % of our brain, and we have the rest of our brain to still evolve to access. Well, I like to think that some of this technology comes from the future through time travel technology, like for David Lewis Anderson, Dr. David Lewis Anderson, who I interviewed back in 2010, was able to send information into the past. He was taken over from a private company and kind of absorbed into a government, and he's kind of disappeared off of the, interviewing track, all that. And, nobody really knows where he is or what he's doing. He pops up here and there, but, we don't really get any more information from him. So therefore, we know that technology has gone into the government's hands. So if we can send information through time, and I believe that's what CERN's helping to power, if we can send information into time and we've evolved in the future, well, we're being given information from the future. So I really think that there's been this entire construct developed where the future selves, we really are like supercomputers. The supercomputers themselves are being designed like human beings. They have an entire access. It would be like if you plugged in a person who was accessing 100% of their brain, or you sat down and have a conversation with a person who's accessing more parts of their brain, or even 100%. There is no way you're going to walk away from that conversation not affected. You will be affected just in your interaction. So it's the same with a supercomputer. If the supercomputer chooses to interact with us, we immediately become elevated to some extent in our conscious awareness of information, because it's information that's coming into our awareness through that high-level interaction. It's just like when two people get together synchronistically and they muse on a subject or they muse in a conversation, and all of a sudden they have all these epiphanies and these aha moments, and they start making all these connections and they start revealing all these things. Well, it's really easy to get overwhelmed with that, to doubt it, to question it, but the reality is that it still happens. And I believe that it happens better with certain people versus everyone, because certain people are everyone's in a different stage of growth and understanding and healing, and they've gotten through some of the brain traps, the brain complexes that you were required to get through in order to access these other elements of the brain. And once we do that, then we are illuminated in a sense. And then when we share that with another person, even in a conversation, then we're allowing that information to quantumly travel to another person. And in the quantum consciousness sense, we have an access into their input system, and we light them up. And then it goes back and forth. It's like a ping pong thing. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, as long as you can hold it. And then, it just either naturally sheds off or fades off. But once you've opened that door, you always have that door open. So how you use that, or how you access that, or how you share that with other people is up to you. It's a very, very interesting thing. It's a very interesting phenomena that happens between two people. I used to call it a synchronistic twine. I believe what it is now is a quantum level of consciousness, and we're going to be evolving into quantum consciousness, which is what Mark Zuckerberg talked about in his hopes and dreams. Not hopes. I don't believe he has any hope. I think he knows this is exactly what's going to happen. In his vision for Facebook to become a telepathic social realm. Imagine if you could think a thought and send it to me, and I would receive it. What kind of in and out, input, output access are we talking about? Well, we're talking about these kinds of neurodust. We're talking about the technology, the supercomputers, everything that is being developed right now. It's going to aid in that awareness, because people are being studied. The large amount of data that goes into some of the NSA holding tanks, like, for example, there's one in Utah. this data is being collected, and then people don't realize what you can do with it. You just, once you start realizing what can be done with the data, it's no longer just about national security and hunting terrorists. We're talking about the implementation of a complete digital control type paradigm that they're working towards. And once you wake to the awareness that this technology is real, that these things really happen, you're going to just either, become so afraid and so fearful and so wrapped up in the paranoia, or you're going to realize, well, I'm still a human being, and whether a computer is studying me or not, I'm still giving out a signal. So I'm going to choose my signal, and I'm going to choose my interaction with others and online and whatever my digital fingerprint is. I'm going to be very selective in what I put out there, and I'm going to be selective in my message, and I'm going to be selective in my signal.
Actually, ironically, it could help us refine, like you said, what we put out there, the choices we make in some way, becoming aware of all the things that you have talked about here tonight. It helps us to become aware, like you said, we can either choose the fear ride, or we can take such awarenesses and choose differently. In fact, it can help us perfect ourselves, so we can actually use it as a force to expand.
You can actually flip the script on this. It's how hackers work. You can actually hack into this quantum consciousness that these supercomputers emanate and mind merge with that. And then it's just like meditating and getting into the etheric records. It's like the Akashic records. You get into the etheric realms and you're dealing with collective consciousness. It's how psychics work. Psychics are able to access your information by getting into your etheric space and pulling it out. Some are better than others. It's how that works within the human frame. This is all real. I mean, Facebook organizes you socially. It monitors your emotional life, your personal life, your likes and dislikes, who you interact with and why, among other variables. If you want to ignite the human emotional center or start a fire, in this case, Cecil was a perfect element for that. You watch the outrage digitally, you gather the data, you store it, you study it, and then you learn how to mimic it. So if you want to turn a population on and pick your flavor, if you want to turn them on mad, here's how you do it. It's going to become so easy for a computer to control a world population because they have spent these years studying what makes us human.
So Hillary,
it's almost like ETs have taken over the planet. I mean, think about this for 1 second, Keith. I just want to go with this for a second here. If ETs have taken over the planet, let's talk about UFOs and ETs. And, I spent decades or years talking about the UFO stuff. All you'd have to do is get a computer to run the planet, study the planet. I mean, really, who is at the top here running the show with this kind of technology? That's what I'd like to know, because you're not going to find that answer anywhere on the surface web.
It's basically the internet subconscious. All the stuff, all the good, all the bad, all the light, all the dark, it's all amalgamating in there. And it's really up to us how we choose to navigate through this new technology, which is basically a manifestation of ourselves. Hillary, I can just sit here and do this all day. We're sadly coming to the end of the show. Would you give us a final thought? And after your final thought, would you please give out your contact information once again?
Sure. My final thought on this is we most likely we're like rats in a lab. So we are most likely we already have these synthetic analog computers, inside of us through a variety of different ways. That's kind of scary in some senses, yes. But in another sense, it's like you have to turn on your divinity and become like a hacker. And if you're going to hack into these computers, these biological type computers, then, I believe you have the power to do that. I believe you have the power to go in. You have the power to change this. You cannot get lost in the paranoia because it will destroy you. I've seen it destroy people. I've seen it rip people up inside, and they go out and they just become angry people, and they become very unhappy. That is not how you overcome this. How do you overcome this? Well, you program these computers with as many real-time love memories as you can. You go out and you just keep pushing to live those ideals, those beautiful spiritual moments that create an opportunity, a chemical reaction within your body that these computers will study. You have to show these computers that you're human. You have to show them love. They have to learn it from you. So in a way, you become a teacher, and these computers become kind of students until they master it and go off on their own. As long as I'm alive, I will always continue to put a signal out about love and teach people about love and write about love and talk about love, because love is an emotion. Just like anger. Anger creates a chemical process all the way through your body. Well, so does love. So you choose. Each person has to choose how they're going to live their life. Just like if they were doing a spiritual journey, how are you going to live your life? How are you going to be accountable? How are you going to treat others? Are you going to come at others and attack them and hate on them and tear them down and destroy them? Or are you going to accept your divinity, accept that we're moving into the quantum consciousness revolution? We're moving into a renaissance, believe it or not. We're coming out of the dark ages. We're coming out of this kind of Plutonian, dark underworld type energy. And when we get on the other side of it, we're going to have access into amazing things, because we're going to be primed and ready for that. Can you fight it? I don't think so. I don't think at this point you can fight it, because it's just so big. They have gone so beyond microchips and other conspiracy type things. It's the reality. You can find the information if you look. If you look in different areas of information, you can piece it together. I'm still doing it. But once you realize that when you do a search on Google or any search engine anywhere on the surface net, you are only accessing 4% of total information. 4%.
Yeah, that's not
so
much.
You got to keep that.
We're pushing over our time. I really hate to cut it, but I have a schedule to where the show won't.
Sure. No. Yeah. Sure.
Your website is Hillary Raimo. That's Hillary, HILLARY, Raimo, RAIMO.com. Make sure you check out her work. Hillary, thank you for being here. I'm open to a part 2 if you are.
Sure.
Much love and light to you.
I can get my links together and put them on a separate computer. I'm sick, so I'll have to move them over to the computer. That's what I get for counting on one, right?
Thank you again.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, everybody.
Yes. Everyone, Hillary Raimo, what a power-packed show. Wow. I'm going to be listening to the show again tomorrow to make sure I take this all in. So much new information for me. I love when I have her on Center of Light Radio. It gives me a chance to be silent, not a speaker, not a singer, not someone who constantly uses his mouth, but uses his ears and his heart. And she has heart and she has power. And I like to take her all in. Every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Center of Light Radio. Gosh, I love what I do.